Hey, I'm Matt McKenzie, and today I wanted to go over setting up an Azure Virtual Desktop host pool. So I've got my home lab open, and wanted to go ahead and say we start off with let's create a workspace. A workspace is kind of like a group. You could do it like department style, I guess. You could go and say, hey, I want to create a new group. We'll call it see, we'll call it MIT DevOps. Sure. Do it for the developers in our team. Sure. And we're not going to register any application groups because we haven't created any yet. Uh, we will do diagnostics and we'll say we want it to go to our AVD log analytics workbook. If you haven't created one, we can go over that in another video. And tags if you're ready to do tags in production. Since we're just demoing, we're not putting tags in there. So we'll go ahead and create that workspace real quick. And then once that's completed, we're going to go back over to Azure Virtual Desktop. And it might take a sec to show up. It showed up for a second there. There we go. Okay, so we got our MIT DevOps. So now we're going to go create a new host pool. We'll pick that. We'll call our host pool name. We'll call it DevOps. And it will be in US East. We're going to do a desktop application. We're going to make it a pooled desktop. We're going to say, maybe we'll have 5 users on there. And we'll go ahead and add, well, yeah, we'll start without it, and we can always add the VMs in it. But basically, it'll follow the same steps. So no, for now, we will do a desktop app group, and we'll say we want to do it in the DevOps workspace, which we just created. We're going to enable boot diagnostics, send it back to that same log analytics work group we got. We're not going to do tags because we're just doing a quick demo. And we'll click create. And what this is going to do is set us up a shell so that we can configure all of our host pool configurations and settings. And then we can go in and set up some VMs. We'll create some remote apps as well as the full desktop experience. Okay, so now we'll go back over to Azure Virtual Desktop and we should have our host pool. We've got our DevOps host pool. And we don't have any VMs or anything like that assigned to it. And so the easiest way, if you want to go in, you can add your machines now. You don't have to add the machines when you do it in case you're still kind of planning. You just want to stage some things. So this is where we'd go to set up the additional machines. But in here, we've got a scaling plan if we decide to auto manage some of that. We've got our RDP properties. So depending on what you have set up for, connection and whatnot, you might have to configure that. We're not doing what you call it, Azure AD auth, at least on here. Session behavior say, yeah, client will automatically try to connect. Bandwidth detected, we'll say, yeah, use automatic bandwidth. Networked auto detect, yeah, sure, why not? Compression, we might want to try to see if we can get it to do a little more efficient. And then it's already set up for streaming media, which I mean, Probably don't want to be watching YouTube from your Azure Virtual Desktop. Device redirection. Maybe, I guess it's going to decide, hey, are you going to be using Teams on this? Are you going to be doing any meetings from this AVD, session? Or are you just purely, hey, this is a terminal, you access everything securely. So we'll pretend that they're not using it for Teams. So we'll go ahead and disable, you know, some of this. Let's see, high compression. Yeah. Because one of the things to think about is if you got your Azure Virtual Desktop, it's going to take so much bandwidth depending on how many monitors you have and what your resolution is to stream back. So you'll have to kind of go in and tweak this to whatever works best for your users, but also matching up what your policies are. We're not going to redirect cameras. We're not directing any portable devices. We're not doing any clipboard. COM port redirection. No. Printers. Smart cards. And USB. There we go. Display settings. You can decide, hey, are we just doing one display or are we allowing all the monitors? If I got 3 monitors, am I allowing somebody to, redirect and use all 3 of those or not? Obviously that takes up a lot of bandwidth and resources too. So kind of something you have to figure out when you're doing that. Some of these can be tweaked, very customized. We're not gonna obviously go in and tweak that, but that's something you can try out an environment, kind of see, hey, do I need to define this? Do I, am I trying to optimize performance? Do I know, hey, all the terminals or all the workstations they're using, um, and how they need to be set up to optimize it and not say, hey, just any computer logs on, we just support all the displays. So that's something you can go in and kind of manually tweak if you need to, but for the most part, your primary one's going to be multiple displays. This is the advanced properties where it has just the text-based piece. So if you need to say copy this to another host pool, you could just highlight it all, copy it, and go over to that other host pool and paste it in. So we'll go ahead and click save. Properties is where you can go in and change your settings. Like, so say for instance, hey, I want start the VM on Connect. Say if you have your VM shut down every night, and then you want the first person who logs on, or when you reach that threshold of, hey, somebody can't log on because there's no more available sessions on that host, you might want to turn that on, and so that'll require you to add an RBAC role for Windows Virtual Desktop, which is now obviously Azure Virtual Desktop, but it will allow the user, when they go to log in, to automatically turn on their VM for them. Validation environments for testing, so you'll get some earlier installations of the Azure Virtual Desktop agent, so that you can test things out. So always good to have a validation environment to be testing out things ahead of time, but not necessarily to have. And then you can go in and put a friendly name for this host pool if you choose to. This is also where you can change your algorithm from breadth first to depth first, and the difference being breadth first load balances between all of your hosts in your host pool. Depth first will start by loading up one VM first before moving on to the next. So this would be for performance. This would be for cost benefits. It's not to say you can't technically do both, but you would need to tweak that with your scaling plan, which we can go over in another video. You can change your max session limits. So say, for instance, you want to start off with 5 and, kind of test it out, see how many users you can cram onto each VM during the testing phase. This is where you can kind of tweak it, adjust it as needed on your host pool. So we'll go ahead and do save there. And the other pieces you can schedule uh, your Azure Virtual Desktop agents on the machines so when they do their updates. Um, it shouldn't really be a huge deal for them just to do them on their own, but if you like to have it set on a schedule, so that you can kind of monitor, hey, what's going on? Is there a problem? Each version that gets installed, uh, it it retains 3 versions on each server. So let's say, for instance, it goes to install the latest one, it drops the oldest version, and it still has 2 other versions. So if the newest version fails or has issues, it can revert back to a previous version that is working without disrupting. So that's something to keep in mind. Application groups. By default, when you create a host pool, it's going to create your desktop, uh, you know, the DAG is what they call it, the desktop application group. So it's going to create a desktop group, assuming when you created it, you chose desktop instead of remote app. So I usually do at least a full desktop. I can, put administrators on it so that it's easier just to get in, get everything set up and staged. And then, I can add some additional remote apps if my user's only going to be using remote app, or maybe they're using full desktop. But the one important piece is you can only have one desktop app group per host pool, which makes sense. Why would you need two? So, so that's something to keep in mind. And then you can see session hosts. You can see insights if you set up the log analytics workbook and the diagnostic settings. This would just show this host pool, whereas the Azure Virtual Desktop Insights would be all of the host pools. You just have to choose which ones you're on. And then they have the new insights, which is, multiple host pools. That being said, we've got that kind of out of the way as far as what the host pool looks like. Let's go on over and we'll go ahead and add a VM. And as you can see, it's already got filled in the subscription, the resource group, all the information for where the Azure Virtual Desktop session or the host pool's located in. So we're just going to go in and add a machine. We've already got our resource group. We're going to give it a prefix. So maybe we'll call it DevOps, or maybe we'll do W11 DevOps. Yeah. So after this, it will put a dash and then the numbers incremental afterwards, and then we'll choose our availability zones, and then we've got to select an image. And they've already got a bunch of images in here, so you could use our image. We could use one of the pre-done images. For this demo, I'm just going to go ahead and choose this one with the Microsoft apps. And then don't forget, change out your VM size. Let's see here. Do this because it's small. And then we'll choose our 2 VMs. For production, you'll want to do premium SSD. For testing, probably do standard SSD since about half as much. We do want the boot diagnostics turned on. We'll check out our, let's see, wrong one. We'll do our AVD subnet. We'll keep the NSG on so that we can do any monitoring on the networking. And then from here, typically we're got it joined to the domain. And you do have to choose an internal domain. This is test domain. And see, we don't care about OU. We do have to create a local machine account, which is good in case you have a typo on your setup. for joining the domain. If it errors out, which you'll know, it'll say that it failed. You can go look and see, and it'll say, oh yeah, your step of joining the domain failed. And so you have to go in the VM with the local account, join it manually to the domain, and then you should be good to go. Okay, and so we got all that. Don't have any tags we're doing on this, but we're creating two VMs. Let's see, what are we missing over here? What we're missing? Not a valid procedure. Oh, because we don't have enough cores in the subscription. No worries. So we'll go back. We'll change it to the F series. Sorry about that. All right. There we go. Review and create. Let's see what we got now. We can kick this off. Yeah, there you go. So we go ahead and do create. Got it in our availability zones. And it'll create us two new VMs, and then be ready to roll. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video until we get done and catch back up. All right, so our VMs are done. And it looks like supposedly everything was successful. So now we've got two machines in here. And as you can see, hey, it's W11 DevOps -0 and 1. They're both domain joined. And it shows they're available, means the AVD agents installed and they're talking back correctly. So some things, in case you don't know, if you have to do maintenance on anything, or maybe you need to take one offline real quick and have people stop connecting to it, you can go in and turn on drain mode. Drain mode will not allow any new connections to the VM. You might have to kick off some people who are on the current VM. You can see your session totals right here. You can see your AVD agent version installed here. If you're looking to see, hey, what users are actually on this host, not that I have any users on here, we can show you that here. You click on users, and it'll show you if they're active or disconnected. You can also turn on and off drain mode from here. So we'll go ahead and turn off drain mode over here on this one, which is fine. The other thing you got to do then is, okay, I've got my host pool, but how do people log into it, right? Well, first things first, we got our app group, which is our DAG for our desktop application group. And you can see in here, it's got one application. 0 people are assigned to it. So you go in here and you can see, okay, yeah, this is session desktop. This is the default. So we'll call it, what you call it? We'll call it DevOps Desktop. Sure. We'll save it. We'll go back over here to app groups again because we went a little too far back. And then we'll do assignments. And so from here, we'll get us a user assigned, and then we can show you how the client works. Okay, got our user, we selected them. Typically, you'd be doing a group to make it easier to do group deployments and manage everything via groups. For our demo, just want to show you, hey, here's how you add a user. It'd be the same if you added a group. So we'll go ahead and select that. They'll be added in here, and then we can go log in as that user in just a sec. Okay, and so we'll hop on over. We've already got signed into our other user. First things first, we really need to figure out, hey, how do I log in to Azure Virtual Desktop? We'll go Azure Virtual Desktop Client. There's a few different ways to connect. There's the native client, At least for Windows, is the native client. They have a Mac OS native client as well. And so it's got a 64-bit, 32-bit ARM version. And so we can walk through using this here in just a minute. There's also the web client. And so the web client lets you open up the web page. Here we go. There's obviously depends on it which region and what you're doing. We're doing the standard cloud. We're not in a classic. I don't even think you can deploy classic anymore. So we open that up. We're already signed into Office 365. You can see right there, hey, this is our workspace, and then this is our desktop that we've just got assigned. Our application group has this one application in it. We can add additional, applications then to be displayed. And so that's one way, the Mac OS client. Keep in mind, the Mac OS client, I know we always have somebody who's hanging out on ancient version Mac OS. You want to make sure at least 10.14 or later. Um, and you can just download the client from the App Store, which will probably grumble at you if you're on an old version as well. So keep that in mind. If you got some legacy stuff, maybe not so good. Web client, great way to quickly test if a user's having issues. Just to verify that they have access, they can open it up. We'll open it via the web browser as well as the desktop client so you can get a good idea of what it looks like. The iOS iPad client from the App Store have to have the limitations on the versions, etc. I do know the App Store versions seem like they update somewhat frequently, um, and you'll be able to see that in the diagnostic logs if you have a lot of issues with people connecting. I know I've seen quite a few for like the Microsoft Store client version not being as reliable. Maybe if a user falls behind on the version, then it kind of gets a little funky. So, but they've got iOS, iPad, Android, Chrome OS, and then they've got the Microsoft App Store. They have a Thin client set up as well, which I haven't gotten to try out, but I do have a Thin client, so I might look at that at another video. For today, like I said, we'll go ahead and crank open the web version just to get a quick preview. And it's complaining. Let's see if it'll go. Thinking about it. It normally does not have issues, but we shall see. Let me check it out and get back on the video. Okay, moving on from here, what we'll do, we'll go ahead and install at least the uh, Windows 10 and 11 client. And, oh, looks like it's already installed. Well, let's go ahead and remove it real quick, and then we'll add it back. There we go. Okay. And so, I have to grab the EULA, read through that in your spare time. Make sure you're cool with everything. Um, two different ways to install the client. If your users don't have admin privileges, you might just install per user. This will also mean that a client gets updated without needing administrator privileges. If you've got a lot of remote users that maybe you can't handhold and they're not, local admins, probably just go for this route because it'll be a lot easier. If you do need to, if you do have admin access, you've got some, methods for patching and remote management software, you might go for install for all users on the machine, especially, or if they're, local admins, hey, just have them install it themselves. But this will be the least amount of IT overhead. This would be more effort on our part. So we'll go ahead and install it since we're administrator on this machine. We'll launch it. Probably gonna make a sign back in. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So, all right. So let me sign into my account real quick. Okay. There we go. Got signed in. See the same thing as that. Let's give it a try. Let's see if for whatever reason if the web version's cranky or if it's something going on. Maybe I got to restart one of those VMs. We'll see here. Give me just a sec. Okay, so we figured it out. It ended up being a user issue. So we'll go ahead and log on in. And of course, we haven't set up a bunch of stuff other than what's on my test domain, but we'll go over in another video. FS logics, set up storage counts, etc. Some GPOs, uh, especially RDP short path. The one thing to keep in mind on these clients, if you want to use multi-monitor, it's really only supported on the two native clients. So on the Windows desktop client, the Mac OS client. Otherwise, the web client's single only. Same with the App Store versions. So that is something to think about. As well as if you plan on using the screenshot protection, only works, I think, on the Windows platform. So it's not a pure perfect scenario, depending on what you use. But the native clients is kind of what you want to lean everybody to go to. And then obviously, if you have to use the App Store versions, maybe depending on the device it is. Also, the web client will not work on the mobile smart devices, so you'll have to use the App Store version on there. So let's see. We back at the oh, we were here. There we go. So here we are. So we're logged into Azure Virtual Desktop um, over the web. So we're on the web version. And you can see, hey, I've got the start menu. If I've got an image, I've probably got all my apps and stuff. We just use the generic marketplace one. But that's pretty much how to use the desktop application group. Like I said, you can use the client to get to it. And if you're having issues, definitely look into, hey, why are you having issues? My issue today specifically was I had a user who wasn't in the domain, their cloud only account, and you can't log into the domain if you don't have a domain join, using Azure AD Connect and synchronizing the accounts. So to have the on-prem identity match up with the cloud identity. Um, so other issues though you can have might be connection related. You would find that under the um, underneath the insights section, as long as you've got it set up properly, all of your agents will get that. We'll go over that in another video as well. And then I guess if we want to go ahead and do a new app group, we could do a new app group. So we can go over doing a remote app and say DevOps, and we'll call it DevOps. Uh, let's see. We'll call it app DevOps, and then we'll go in and add our applications. So there's a couple different ways to add applications. You use start menu. You can use the file path. Say, for instance, if your application doesn't show up in the start menu, or maybe it's one of those legacy apps that you're gonna have to go in and do the path or whatnot. If you do have to do this, make sure you put the path name, the application name, your icon, which is typically the same as the executable, and then the icon index, which is usually 0. You can do a switch at the end if your application requires you to have a switch. You would just do the .exe or whatnot, and then have slash and the switches you'd need to execute the application. For us, just for this quick demo, we're gonna go in and let's see. We could do WordPad. That'd be an easy one. So we'll do save. We'll do assignments. We'll choose Amanda. We'll put it on the. You do have to register on a workspace. We'll register to the only workspace that this is already assigned to. We'll do next. Diagnostic logs, tags, no tags, create. And this might take a sec. Well, while we're waiting on that, I guess I can always say one main thing when you're going to set up a remote app, make sure your hosts are or host pool session hosts are identical because they will need the application installed in order to actually have this work. So let's see where we're, oh, there we go. Apps for remote. So now we have our applications already in there. So if we go back over here, we'll log out. Actually, we'll keep it open. And let's I guess we'll have to refresh. Let's refresh on the desktop app. So we should see right here. There you go. Here's our WordPad. And it should pull it up just like an RDS server would. With just a floating WordPad, but it's actually running. The fun parts when you get onto like a Mac OS X operating system, you're like, oh, Windows icons and stuff. So, I think that's really everything we've got to cover for this. I'll do another video on some additional things for Azure Virtual Desktop. Thanks for joining.